to Unladylike Opinions. This is a new show, which is not really new, but it's new to my channel. All American Season 4, Episode 1, Survival of the Fittest. Okay, so we start off with the episode started off with Layla trying to talk Carrie. She's trying to take Carrie home because, you know, last season she found out that Carrie, you know, wasn't avoiding her. She was avoiding her family, but Carrie had it like, you know, her family didn't want nothing to do with her, but Carrie has mental issues. But Carrie asked her to stop somewhere real fast before she take her to the airport or whatever. And so she has Layla on this cliff. And, you know, she takes Layla by the hand. And as they're standing on the cliff, she talking about we can finally end all the pain. And Layla is trying to pull back like, wait a minute or whatever. And she's screaming. And she's still, you know, Carrie's still trying to pull her. And then we, you know, hear Layla just start screaming, and her dad runs in her room, and we see that she was having a nightmare or whatever. And he tells her, Layla, you're at home, you're safe. And, you know, she was like, it's fine. The doctor said that, you know, I was gonna have nightmares, so it was kind of expected. So she tells him, you know, she's fine, and she runs off to the bathroom. And you can tell he is really worried about her or whatever. And then, you know, we flash over to Spencer, and he's sitting in a cemetery, you know, talking to a grave. We don't see what grave he's talking to. And he's saying how it wasn't supposed to be like this. He got everything he wanted in life so far, and he was happy for the first time. But now he feels like people like them are not supposed to have it all. Then we flash back to the football game that they was playing, you know, last season or whatever. And of course Spencer is on the field doing his thing, you know, doing a little spectacular Spencer thing or whatever. And he playing his butt off. Then, you know, Beverly comes back with another touchdown, and the score is 14-17 in the second quarter. And JJ gets sacked. The ball goes back to Crenshaw. And old boy I can't never remember old boy, bright skinned boy that I always hate on Spencer. He hollered out, Spence, get your head in the game. And Spence said, my head is in the game. Don't you see this score? And Spencer gives him another touchdown. And the score is 21-17. And it's halftime. As Spencer is leaving the field for halftime, he sees his mom standing by Billy, Coach Baker. And he was like, what's going on? And Billy said, I think you need to go with your mother. And he was like, we're in the middle of a game, a championship game. I got to get this win. And Grace said, you know, it's Coop. I'm like, y'all couldn't wait until like the game was over but to tell him that? Like, what the hell? So then we flash back over to him at the cemetery, and Olivia pulls up and said, do you need company? And he kissed her, and she asked, you know, was he okay? And for the first time, he said no. And she asked what was the paper that was in his hand, and he said it's the commitment letter to Toledo State. The earliest signing is tomorrow night, and it has to be signed by tomorrow night. And Olivia said, but you haven't signed it. And he said, and I'm not going to sign it. And he doesn't want to leave his family after everything that didn't happen. He doesn't want to leave the people he have left. He doesn't want to leave the people that he loved. He don't want to leave them behind. So he walks off, and Liv looks like she is confused. And then we get over to Layla's house where she's just coming in from a run, and her father is cooking all this big old breakfast. And he said he cooked a lot because he didn't know really what she wants, so he basically cooked everything. So she said she's fine, don't worry. And he said, you say the fine word at least 12 times a day, and I am worried about you. And, she said, yes, a lot of crappy things have happened to me, but, I'm talking to my therapist and she is getting me through it. And he thinks that she should start seeing her therapist at least 2 times a week. And maybe they can go to family sessions one of those days. And she just runs off and said she had work to do, and he was like, well, let me drive you. And she was like, it's fine. And I'm like, what the hell? And so Spencer walks into the house and everyone is there, and they having a little intervention for Spencer, y'all. And they trying to stop him from throwing his future away. And Chris said, no, Spence thinks he needs to carry the responsibility of others on his back, and it's like an addiction for him. And Grace said he wants to use what happened with Coop as an excuse to throw away Toledo State, and they can't let him do that. And Patience, which is Coop's girlfriend, steps up and said, Coop wouldn't let you do this because of her. She told you when you got shot that time that if she had a tint of your talent, she would bounce and never look back. And then we get a flashback of Spencer running down the hall at the hospital. And he sees Patience at this room, and he asks, who shot her? How bad is it? And, Spencer watches in the window as the doctors are working on Coop. And I'm like, yeah, I know this wouldn't happen in a real hospital. They wouldn't let you sit there and watch them work on a person. Come on now. Blood and everything everywhere. So Layla goes over to Liv's house, and Jordan answers the door, and he acting all suspicious or whatever, but he didn't know how he was gonna react when he saw Layla. So that's how he was acting like that. And Layla asked where Liv was, and he said, she with Spencer. And he just grabs her and hugs her, and he said, I'm glad that you're okay. And she asked him, can she hang there because her dad was hovering. And Jordan said, your dad was scared, so I think some hovering is allowed. And he said, at least y'all are talking. My dad barely says 2 words to me. We barely get a hand by from him. And she asked if he remembered the time that they was building this fort and he broke the daddy trophy. And he said, yeah. And he was like, he wanted to kill me. And she said, but yet you're still standing here alive. So she tells him he tells her that his dad blames, well, she tells him that her dad blames himself for what happened with Carrie, and he is overcompensating, and she wants to make it okay for him. And Jordan says, well, who gonna be there for you? And she says she is fine, and he said, no, you are not. And she finally agrees and says, but I can't tell my dad this. And Jordan said, well, tell me. I'm happy to listen, and I won't break. And she says she keep replaying in her head what happened. And then we get a flashback of what happened with Carrie. And Carrie telling her, while they're still on this cliff, Carrie is telling her that, a lot of people has betrayed Layla, and how Layla's mom left her. And I'm like, betrayed her by leaving her. I'm like, she died. What the hell? And she's trying to get Layla to jump over the cliff with her. And Layla says she feels love, forgiveness, and she doesn't want to die. And she asks Carrie, to let her go. Then we get back to Spencer's intervention, and Spencer said that it's just one scholarship. There are many to come, and there might be others. And Chris said, you playing Russian roulette with your life right now. And they say your dream hasn't changed on playing professional ball, so why won't you sign the paper? And Patience said, if anybody get it, she does. And he is stronger than what he's portraying. And Chris said, please say something, Spencer, before somebody breaks out and say you is kind, you is smart. And Spence said he is doing what's best for him. And in walks Darnell. And as Darnell walked in, he said, you are just letting the fear take over. And he smiled, Spencer smiled so hard when he sees Darnell. And then you see them walking into this, restaurant. And Darnell says, how, his mom is in this treatment place in Texas and everything is going very good. She's doing better. And he committed to play, football at Texas Northern Tech. And Spence tells him he was proud of him, and Darnell said, all right, now what's up with you? You are smarter than this. And Spence said, dang, can I order a drink or something? And Darnell said, no, not when you got Miss Grace barely getting any sleep at night, losing sleep, worried about you. And he said, you are too smart to throw away your scholarship over a heartbreak that you cannot change. And Spence said, pain is always the hardest for the ones that's left standing. And Darnell was like, nobody knows better than that than me, you, and Dylan. And Spence says, this is Coop. This is different. And then we get a flashback at the hospital. Patient says they're trying to stabilize Coop to get her to surgery, and Grace and Olivia, go get food and coffee. Then Spence get a text, and then he goes outside, and it's Preach standing out there. And of course, Patient follows him, and when she see Preach, she just pushes Preach and asks him how can he dump Coop up at the hospital like that. And he said he the reason that she got a fighting chance. And Spence tells him, man, explain fast. And he said Coop called him and said she was gonna go confront Mo and for planting drugs on her tour bus. And he said, nah, wait, let me handle it. You go ahead or whatever. And he said, you know how Coop is. Of course, she wasn't gonna wait on me. She went on and tried to handle it herself. And when he made it, Mo had a gun on Coop, and she shooting at Coop, and I'm shooting at her. And he thought he got his shot off before Mo got hers off, but she hit Coop, and he did hit Mo, and he said he had no choice but to shoot her. And he said Coop was bleeding out in his arm, so he rushed her to the hospital in his car. And Patience asked, why didn't you stay? And Spence said because he had her blood all over him. And Preach said he is a felon on parole and he can't go back to prison. He is going back to prison when all this gets out. That's what he has, and he said. And Patience asked, where was Mo? And he said, dead, I hope. And back inside the hospital, Patience said this is all her fault because she convinced Coop that she was looking for drama with Mo, and there was none, and she pushed Coop to let her guard down, and because of her, Coop walked into Mo's trap. And Spence tells her Coop is a fighter and she gonna pull through. And in walks Miss Grace, and they are trying to run to get Coop, but the doctor said they gotta rush her to surgery. And they was like, I thought she wasn't healthy enough to go to surgery. She said she's not, but she needs surgery right now. And so we back on the cliff with Carrie and Layla. And Carrie finally let Layla go, and she said she is sorry. She's just sobbing, crying uncontrollably, and Layla calls her name when she got silent. And now we get a flash of her in the studio thinking about this. And in walks her dad with some coffee, and he asks her, oh, you working on Coop album? Oh, let me help. And she was like, no, I got it. And he was like, well, let me sit and watch then. And she said, I don't need you watching over me every second. He said, I almost lost you and I need to be a little overprotective. And he said he spoke to her therapist when he called her to add more sessions. And she was like, you spoke to my therapist? And, she was upset and said she had to run some errands. And he was like, well, let me drive you. And she was like, no, Jordan coming with me, lying. And Laura walks in on Billy at his office at the school and asks, why he wasn't at Spencer's intervention. And he said, oh, he got everybody and they mama going, so they got that covered. He said Spence has what he needs, and that's a lot of family. And Laura said, and you are family. Billy said Jordan was supposed to be recovering, and the doctor made that clear, and Spencer risked Jordan's life. And Laura said, no. Jordan risked his own life, and it was stupid and dangerous, but ultimately it paid off. Look how amazing Jordan played in the championship. And then we flash back to the championship game, and Jordan is lighting the field up, doing his thing, making all the plays, and they get the score to 38-3. Beverly is up with 7 seconds left, and it's Crenshaw ball. Billy tells Chris to play like play like Chargers, and he has given him everything he needed, and he can't ask him for anything more but to finish it. Chris says, yes, sir, and he runs off on the field, and he gives the pep talk to the team, and he tells them, we had each other's back even when we were mad at each other, because that's what family do, and we are all family, so let's finish this. And the little bright skinny boy stood up and said, they're a missing piece, a valuable player of the team that is missing, and he's dealing with a family tragedy, and he has carried us all the way here on his back, and the least we can do is win this for Spencer. And Chris gets the ball, he spins, he do another spin that way, and he rushes and pushes his way into the end zone, and they holler out, oh, he is short. It looked like he was there, but the referees hollered out he was short. So Beverly wins the state championship again. I'm like, damn. So Crenshaw is crushed by this, of course. But they all show up at the hospital to support Spencer. And Spencer immediately apologizes, and, he can't believe that they are all there for him. And Jordan said, you shouldn't be the one apologizing, and they hug each other. So JJ asks if there was any update on Coop, and that's when Miss Grace and Coop's dad walks out, and it said Coop made it through surgery, and they don't know the extent of the damage until she wakes up. And Spencer looks at his mom, Grace, and was like, Mom, what is it? And Grace said she barely made it through surgery, and it's not as much as when will she wake up, it's if she wake up. And he was like, she in a coma, and she said yes. And I was like, damn, Coop. So then we get back to the present day with Darnell talking to Spence, and Spence said his mind is made up. Liv comes in and said Layla dad asked for Jordan's number, and then she asked Darnell if he had any luck getting through to Spence, and Darnell said this one hard-headed Negro. And Spence said, y'all know I'm standing right here, right? And so Liv tells him he should talk to her dad, and Spence said he ain't seeing it for me right now, or whatever. He ain't trying to hear nothing from me. So Darnell said, all right, this is the last time I'm gonna say this. Staying back or moving back has always been, your go-to anytime things got a little rough. And if you're being honest with yourself, it has become a crutch for you. Maybe something out there scares you, or it's a dream that scares you. You question, what is your question with it? And Jordan rolls up on Layla, and she's sitting at the cafe. And Jordan said, if you're gonna use me as an alibi, next time at least let me know so I can cover for you. And Layla said, of course he called. And he was like, she was like, how did you find me? And he was like, your dad has a find my phone activated. And he said, I had to convince him, not to come by himself and tell him that I was coming. And Layla said, I feel weird being here, without Coop. And Jordan said he was going to Spencer's house and asked if she wanted to come, but she was like she was gonna go home before her dad sent the National Guard after her. Jordan tells her the more she keep her dad in the dark, the tighter he's gonna hold on, and to just be honest with him. And she said even if it hurts him, then Jordan says the pain is for a moment, the healing is for a lifetime. That's what you told Carrie that night. Then we flash back to her and Carrie on the cliff. Carrie tried to make Layla go like, get out of here, but Layla was like, no, I'm staying. And she tried to talk her down. And she tells her, she was on the cliff last year and she wanted to end her life, and she is proof that you still can make it. And Carrie says she is not as strong as Layla. And she was like, I've been here before, got help, and now I'm back in the same spot again. I can't keep starting over. Clearly, it's not working. And Layla said, fighting for our mental health, there is always ups and downs, but there's always a forward movement. And she tells Carrie she returning the favor because Carrie saved her life once, and she is not leaving her. She didn't leave her, so she's not going to leave her until she returns the favor that, you know, Carrie did for her. So Carrie turns around and says, everything hurts. It hurts so bad, Layla. And Layla promised her that it's just for the moment and she would heal. Carrie cries and says she's failed. And Layla said, let's focus on one thing, and ask her, where was the last time that you felt safe? And she said, you know, at the Running Springs facility. And Layla gets her off the cliff, and then we get back to Layla's house. And her dad walks in and apologized for smothering her. And Layla said, you know, she needs to feel safe. She doesn't feel safe at home. She hasn't felt safe since her mom passed and her dad left. And he is a part of the reason why this home doesn't feel safe to her. And it left her vulnerable to someone like Carrie. And he said he understands and he agrees that he should be asking for forgiveness, and he wants her healthy and whole, and how to make her feel safe again. And you see Spence sitting at the table looking at the letter from college. Then he get a text and he runs off. And then we see him at the hospital, and it's Coop. Coop is awake. And he said, he walks into her room and said, 3 days, Coop, you make my heart stop for 3 days. And she looks at him and says, who are you? And I almost died when she said that. My heart broke for Spencer, because the look in his eyes was like, what? And he was like, he started walking over to her bedside, and he was like, it's me, Coop, it's me, Spencer. And then, you know, he kneels down or whatever. And this heifer busts out laughing and said, ain't gonna say, you should see your face, fool. Man, Spencer said, man, if you wasn't in that bed, I'll whoop your ass. And, you know, he tried to hug her, and of course she ouched or whatever and got him to move back or whatever. And he kissed on her forehead, and I was like, oh. And so Layla shows up to Liv's house with her dad and all her bags. And that's where she is going to be staying. And he thanks Laura for letting her stay, and Laura thanks him for agreeing to let her stay. And they say they goodbyes. Something in my glasses. And they say their goodbyes and I love yous. And Laura tells him, this not gonna be for forever. You know, he can come by anytime he wants. And he thanks her again. And Spencer goes to see Billy. And Billy tells him he heard the good news about Coop. And Spence tells him he gonna sign with Toledo by the end of the day. But he couldn't bring himself to sign. He couldn't bring himself to do it when he thought Coop was gonna stay in coma and die. But she woke up and gonna make a full recovery. But he still can't sign. And he said Darnell thinks it's something about the dream that scares him. Billy said, well, yeah, you got to do what's right for you. And I'm like, you still mad? So Spence said, how many times I got to say that I'm sorry, man? Coach, I'm sorry. I trained Jordan. I am sorry. I had to leave the game. And maybe if I would have stayed, we would have came close to the wire like we did. We could have been the state champions. Billy said, we are the state champions. He don't care what that record said. We all know that, and that's all that matters. And then we get a flashback. And it shows Chris was indeed across the line in the end zone for a touchdown. And like Billy said, you know, we don't get instant replays in high school football. So that's going to be a loss that, you know, we're going to have to deal with, you know, live with that call for a long time. But we won that game, and we won it without Spencer James. And Spencer looked like, what? And he said, I'm not saying that to be cruel, but I'm just proving a point. And Spence said, what point is that? And Billy tells him he doesn't have to always be the hero. Just like you didn't have to be the hero when Jordan asked you to train him. You needed to play God your need to play God is gonna get someone killed one day. Spence said, what was I supposed to do? He was gonna train with or without me. At least with me, I could be able to keep him safe. Then Billy jumps up and said, that's not your job. That's my job. Me and Laura's or whatever. And he said, the reason you won't sign this letter is because you're scared that your friends and family won't fall apart while you're gone. And who is Spencer James if he ain't the hero? And he sits down, and Spencer looking all distraught, and he walks off with hurt all over his face. And preaches at Coop's bedside, and he tells her she can't let her do something. And she said, man, you on parole and I'm not letting you go back to prison. And then Patience walks in and she tells Preach, she was like, I thought you was gonna lay low. But he said, I had to see her awake with my own two eyes. And she tells Coop to promise she gonna get some rest. And Coop was like, girl, I've been asleep for 3 days. I'm good. So Preach said, nah, she right, I'ma head on out. And as soon as he get up to head on out, a detective walked in and asked, may I speak with Tamia Cooper? And he said he got some questions. And Patience was like, she's recovering right now. Can't the questions wait? And he said, not if you want to catch who did this to you. And Priest said, there is no one to catch. Monique Moore shot Coop right before, and as soon as he said right before, Coop steps in and said, right before I shot her back in self-defense. And he said, you shot her back in self-defense? And she said, exactly. And the cop was like, well, where's the gun? It wasn't a gun recovered on the scene. She said, I don't know. I was out. When I woke up, it was hours ago in here in the hospital. And he said, well, who took you to the hospital? She said, again, I was out. I don't know. And Priest tells her she should have her lawyer there before she say anything else. And the detective says, tell your lawyer I will be back to finish the statement. And he leaves, and Coop says, there, it's done. Self-defense is a clean cut. And Patience excuses herself, and Preach chases behind Patience. And Patience said Coop was done with all this game stuff, and she threw herself right back in by lying to the police. And Preach said she was trying to save me. Patience said there is always a reason. And she spent the last few days blaming Preach, blaming herself for what happened to Coop. But it's Coop to blame for all the drama that follows her around. When will it stop? And then you see Jordan and Leah surprise Layla with a fort like when they was kids, so she shouldn't have to sleep alone. And she started crying, and it's happy tears. And Spence is back at the grave, and he said Coach asked him a question, and he didn't have an answer. And maybe he is right about me having a savior complex. But at some point, I gotta take a leap and find out. And we see he is at his dad's grave. And he said, Dr. Spears is always telling me to put my mask on first. So here we go. And he kneels down to the grave and says he always thought that they would do this together when he signed to a D1 school. So let's do this, Pops. And he kneels down on the grave and he signs the letter on his grave. And I'm like, how you sign your letter on that regular grave? And he walked over and hugged his mom and Dylan as they was waiting for him by the car, and the episode goes off. I'm waiting to see what's going, transpire in this season. Is Billy and him gonna forever be beefing? I don't like this or whatever. We're gonna see how this gonna go. Okay, that was my review of All American. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I will get back to you guys later. Bye.